This call is being recorded.
How does this work? Hello.
Hi, folks. John Krask is joining.
Hi, John. This is Sheila from Call Hub. Thanks for doing this
Hey,
call.
how are you this morning? Thanks for rescheduling.
I'm great. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Can't complain. Nice to be able to make a connection with you guys. I've enjoyed the opportunity to use your product, and it's a kind of a rare treat to be able to say thanks in person for something that's helped us, succeed.
Oh, wow.
So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, man. That's really good to hear. Thank you. Well, yeah, it's been great to connect with you. I read about you, and we found that your organization does some really interesting things, and so we thought it'd be really cool to write about you on our site.
Thank you. That's nice. I appreciate the chance to get some exposure through different channels like that.
That's great. But first thing, are you like going to attend some conferences? I think Netroots is like tomorrow. Are you going to be there?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I just want to know if you're going to be at Netroots, which is tomorrow, Netroots Nation.
No, we're not, unfortunately. This year, we had to take a pass. My colleague Patrick and I both had other engagements within the library community. I'm keynoting a conference in Portland tomorrow, in fact.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What
So
conference is that?
it's the it's a fairly esoteric inside the industry, library industry conference. It's about interlibrary loan, which is the process of shared resources and the books that move around, but also the databases that get cooperatively purchased, as well as other points of leverage. So it's actually a fairly big policy conference within the library community about how do we move resources around that are taxpayer funded. How do we cooperatively purchase in a way that provides leverage? So I've done Netroots before. It's a great conference. I'm sad that I can't make it.
Oh, okay. And I was just asking because our founder is going to be there, and it's our first time, so it'd be really nice to meet customers and stuff like that. So, but anyway, that's
right. Well, I hope it's a good experience for you guys.
Yeah, I hope so too. Well, anyway, so so this interview is going to be, we're going to talk about how you approach your campaigning and the differences between how it is in small towns versus larger cities, and some more personal questions about every library itself, and then we could end it with some questions about you specifically. Would that be okay?
Sure. That sounds lovely. Thank you.
Okay, great. So so you've run or you've facilitated library campaigns in both small towns and cities as well. So how do you decide where a good place is to support their
Sure. So
campaign?
as a political action committee for libraries, we're donor supported. We receive support from both individual donors, folks who want to contribute one time or annually or monthly, and then we also have a nice amount of corporate support within the library community to help us move our mission forward. That allows us to work in towns and cities and counties, regardless of their size or scale, because we're not in a fee-for-services arrangement with the campaign. We're being supported from the outside. We have found over the last 5 years, and we're about to hit our 5th anniversary this September, that we work in about 10% of the campaigns that are happening for libraries around the country. So if there's 200 a year happening around the country, we'll work on 18 to 22 of them. And that is based on need, and I don't mean just financial need, I mean tactical need. The approach that if they have not been out to the ballot in a long time and there's no institutional memory, we can bring that along. If they have been out to the ballot recently and they've had some challenges that might be about opposition or might be about organizing, we can help fill in some of those gaps. So there's an interview process. It goes both ways. We make decisions about them, they make decisions about us, and we work at will, meaning that we don't have a contract as such with them. We do work together very closely. We do travel a little bit to make personal connections and do most of our work remotely after that. But it is an evaluative process to see whether or not our presence would be helpful. And if it's not, then we move on. If it is, then we try and get involved.
Okay, so how much in advance do you do all of this research, and what time of their campaign do you reach out to them, or vice versa?
We would like to be in the mix about 24 to 36 months out from an election day that's being anticipated. But we have been involved as quickly as 100 hours. It is very different. Yeah, it's very different to come in at 100 hours, of course, than it is to come in at 36 or 24 months. Right. But wherever they are in the process, wherever they are in relation to election day, we have resources and capacity and skills that can help them address the problem. Many of our campaigns are about 12 months is our runway to election day, though.
Okay, nice. So where do you see the gaps, or where do they generally ask for help?
There's two kinds of gaps. One is a knowledge gap. It's certainly not a heart gap. The heart's all there. But a knowledge gap. How do you run a voter ID campaign? How do you run GOTV properly? How do you talk to the media? How do you align both technology resources and boots on the ground in order to be able to succeed with your conversation with your community? And then the other gap that they have sometimes is, it comes down to, how do I want to put it? The other gap, besides the skill set, is one of comfort. Library communities tend not to ask for money except when they really, really need it. And that is a donor appeal. It's often in the form of a public-private partnership. And when it has to be going out to the voters for taxes, we want to be able to provide them some confidence that the approach that they're taking is smart, and it's effective, and it is not going to, in a certain respect, upset the community to have this conversation. That it'll be a good conversation about who do we want to be as a town, who do we want to be as a group of neighbors, and how having the library at the middle of that is actually additive to the future of the community.
Right. So as the next generations of voters age, do you see any kind of change in perception towards the local library, and how do you advise them to change their campaigns according to the the demographic in the community?
Sure. So there's a difference between users and voters. A lot of voters are not users. A lot of users are not voters. So the difference between it's interesting because like with schools or with parks, there are plenty of people out there who believe that we should have a library, a school, and a park at the heart of our community, but they themselves don't use it. They don't use the park because their recreation is different. they don't have kids in school, or the library, well, they have their own Netflix account, they get their stuff from Amazon. So
Right.
the approach to talking to non-users who are voters is absolutely essential. We know that there's very little difference, and this is based on some national survey work as well as local polling that we've done over the years. There's very little difference in terms of demographics for who supports libraries. The major demographic points about age, ethnicity, gender, educational attainment, and household income don't really drive behavior at the polls. What drives behavior at the polls is the people's perceptions and attitudes, voters' perceptions and attitudes about the library and librarians, which means that we've got to, talk to folks who are not users about 21st century libraries, and they're interested. We've got to talk to folks who are not users, who haven't been there since they were kids themselves, about what librarians do today, which means that it's a high-touch campaign that we always run. And the high touch is because there's not a lot of extraneous marketing money out there for libraries in general. We'd like to change that situation as well. But on a campaign-by-campaign basis, we have to really do voter ID and voter touch points dramatically early and with a lot of rigor because, well, there's no voter data. We can't pick up a consumer survey. We can't pick up the Democratic or Republican, list and know it crosses party line. It crosses issues.
Right. So how do you build your voter list then? How do communities?
On a campaign by campaign basis, it's your classic voter ID activity. Contact in person, contact by telephone, contact at events. It is using all your classic tools to be able to have a conversation, not just voter to voter, but neighbor to neighbor. And then that works in towns as big as New Orleans, where we were supporting that community's library campaign. It works in towns as small as, Darby, Montana, where we were supporting that. There's almost 1 million people in New Orleans. There's about 8,000 in Darby, and it's the same principles all the way across the board.
That's so interesting. So what would you, let's say you know somebody who's really keen on supporting their local library, what could a normal American do to support their local library or preserve like the library system? What do you generally advise them to do? A non-election.
In a non-election cycle, it's about being a member of the Friends or a donor to the foundation. It's about stepping up and talking about your own values around literacy and around community growth and around business development in contexts where the library's funding is on the line. It's also bringing your own networks. If you're in a business setting or in a political setting or in a charitable setting or an educational setting, bringing your own networks to the library as a potential partner, and not just about service. So the ways that you can support beyond using it are really about the strategic approach to either the funding future for the library on an extremely local level like Friends and foundations, or the very tactical approach to building new networks for that library from your own networks.
Okay, that's really good advice. So when you go out and help a campaign, do you help a candidate or do you help a local community that is part of the library community? As
a 501c4, we are not involved in candidate work at all. All of our work is issue-based, and all of our work is focused on ballot measures. It might be a referendum or a bond or a millage or a levy or a parcel tax in California, but no candidate work because we're a C4.
Right.
We don't do library trustees or mayors or Congress or anything like that. So it's prohibited activity, and we're very happy to be focusing on the issues. So far, we've helped impact almost $250,000 in stable tax funding for libraries at those issue campaigns since we got started.
That's fantastic. Great work.
Thank you.
So could you maybe give us an example where possibly the public perception regarding library tax was mildly negative, and how did you figure out a way to make that positive?
Sure. The public right now is eager for a conversation about taxes that are smart and taxes that provide some leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Every single community that we work with has already gone through the maximum efficiency discovery process. You know, they've cut things, they've consolidated things, they've held back on hiring folks.
Mm-hmm.
They have all gotten to a point, or they've gotten to a point with their building where the roof is literally falling in around their ears, and it's time. They have to ask the public for support. We worked with one library where the building is sinking into a landfill that it was built on back in the 50s, and this is a situation that needs to be remedied by the community. After that efficiency has been achieved, after that smart use of tax money is done to the maximum with the existing revenue sources, then going to the public is done in one of two ways. One is to get back to great. You know, essentially that this new money is going to extend the success the library has had, and folks respond to that very positively when we have a conversation about extending the success that the librarians in the library has in serving the community. Or the public is able to respond to a conversation that says new money fixes problems. And new money fixes problems is very important to be able to talk about, because even if you're not a user, you would like to see, generally speaking, the infrastructure of our society, of our neighborhoods, held up in some ways. We're not looking to build the Taj Mahal. We just need to reinvest in the community. And even voters at both ends of the spectrum this last general election cycle acknowledged that infrastructure, which the library is a key component of, needs to be reinvested in. But what folks really want, whether it's a new money extends success or new money fixes problems conversation, is that they want to hear about the leverage that comes from a limited amount of tax money going to do some good, smart work. And the library is positioned for educational, within the educational ecosystem, for maximum leverage. They work pre-K through college and lifelong learning in partnership with a lot of other organizations, agencies, and stakeholder groups. Likewise, with the business development community and entrepreneurial support, the library is positioned for maximum leverage. A small investment in the library yields a great, rather dramatic result when it comes to helping people find their first, next, or best job, or start that business. You know, take that idea from just idea all the way to market. That is something that when the voters are brought up to date about, you know, everybody knows about story time and how that fits into education, but not everybody knows that the databases that the library provides and the resources and skills building that it provides is actually business analytics and market intelligence. So telling that story really is one of how do we leverage a small amount of public resources for the maximum good of individuals, you know, finding their own success.
Okay, that's really interesting. So when you do your voter ID to find out who's a supporter, who isn't, who definitely, who's possibly on the straddling both sides. After you do your voter ID, what are your next steps? How do you spread the message that you just said? How do you
Sure.
change the
So
complex?
after voter ID, and roughly it shakes out that about a third of the voters are predisposed to be yes voters. About a third of the voters are questioning. They're not suspicious. They're questioning. They're not swinging. They're just wondering what's up. And then maybe somewhere around a third of the voters are leaning towards no. And that's, you know, that's a lot to do with any tax is a bad tax. After that, we engage in, well, it depends on the community. If the community needs the yard signs and that's how they do campaigning, that's one path. If the community is used to doing knock on the door, we'll work with them there. If the community is difficult to reach for one way, shape, or form, we'll do the telephone campaign. If there is a more of an event-based approach or a hybrid of all those, the direct mail component that is chased by a telephone call that is then reinforced by social media advertising that is then, the last mile, the last minute call to make sure that your voters are coming out. That's how it's both a classic approach as well as a community-specific approach.
Right. Yeah. So, how would you, for example, you mentioned social media, right? So, how would you go about collecting information, like trying to get people to give them your email IDs and phone numbers outside of voter ID?
I'm sorry, I just lost it there. Can you please repeat the question?
How would you, so every election cycle you have to go out and collect information, and you have to convince people to give them your contact information, correct? So how do you advise your...
Right.
Did you catch that, John?
I did. Let me put you on hold for an eighth of a second. I still got my kids at home, and I'm getting some static from my children. 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, so we start with the voter file, the enhanced voter file, from the clerk or from another friendly source in the community, and then when it comes to voter ID, it's shoe leather, it's placing telephone calls, it's keeping track of who's who and what's what. For social media, the keyword deck that we've developed over the years that lets us identify and activate people is pretty extensive and pretty deep. So we lend that deck, of course, to our campaign partners at the local level. We always work in concert with the local Vote Yes committee. We don't come in and do independent expenditure very often. Most of the time, it is 90% of the time it's with a local Vote Yes partner. So we lend them our market intelligence, as it were, and provide some guidance on how to activate folks within that. I mean, oftentimes the library that we're working with is working in one zip code. It is a single town library. Even a town as big as New Orleans, you can identify folks very easily on Facebook and on Twitter through paid social advertising. In those keywords that we've developed, as well as within the geography that we have to fence into.
So these ads that you use to target them, do you use it just for awareness, or do you want them to come to a certain website or like a form or get
Sure.
volunteers?
So for specific library campaigns, it drives folks to the Vote Yes site. For the pre-campaign period, it drives folks to the library's informational site. And then in communities where every library is not working on a campaign, we, as a national advocacy organization, run a whole series of issue ads that drive people to either our action.everylibrary.org site, which is a nation builder backend, or to Save School Librarians, which is another channel that we do besides public libraries for activating the public to provide solutions to funding crises that are hitting schools around library services and librarian positions. And again, it's another nation builder backend.
Oh, okay, nice.
The local campaigns tend to use Nation Builder as well when we hook them up to it. And some of them, though, I got to tell you, are small enough that they can run a campaign off of an Excel spreadsheet. But we're trying to get everybody professionalized because we also want to be able to build a dossier across the country on a campaign-by-campaign basis of who has been activated for libraries, who has been ID'd as a pro-library voter, and then to be able to work cooperatively over the long term with those campaigns beyond their single election day. Some of them go out to vote once in a generation, and then what do we do with that data? Well, we'd like to be able to integrate it back into the Every Library data pool about library supporters. So.
Oh, that's so interesting. So you could even possibly run a national campaign if it came to that?
Yes. So right now, our metrics on exposure to the public, we've got about 250,000 people on Facebook, which is a very nice number that allows us to have a social graph reach of about 10 million people. Our goal, though, for Facebook is to have somewhere between 3 and 5 million people following Every Library, liking Every Library, and taking actions as a result of Every Library's calls to them, calls to action to them through social. And then on our internal Every Library mailing list, in about a year or so of doing this, we weren't building it early. We've come to understand a lot more as we've spent more time in places like NetRoots Nation and at BISC and a few other conferences. The real power building that national database. So right now we're on a path to have about by the end of this year, and we would like to get to between 2.7 and 3.2 million by 2020.
Hi, John. Sorry, I missed that. I got some static and sick. Could you say that again?
So we're on a path right now with the Every Library emailable list. Our house list would be between 2.7 and 3.2 million people by 2020.
Oh wow! Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and we're on track for that, which is nice.
Yeah. So do you how do you add it? So all of the campaigns that you help support, do you use their information also to build this whole national, or do you direct them toward it?
That is a secondary source for us. The primary source for us is engaging the public through social media and then having them take an action where we've captured them into the database.
Okay,
Or through direct contact, email contact. We've done a little bit of robocalling, actually using the Call Hub platform. We've done some, and we're planning to do some dial-in for supporters with the Call Hub platform this fall as well. So we're pursuing multiple channels in order to identify and activate members of the public for libraries as a meta issue in this country, while we support these local library campaigns to do specific activation for a measure that's on a particular election day.
Okay, nice. So when you're running these phone banking campaigns, how do you hire volunteers and how do you coach them into, making the right kind of conversations?
Sure. So the phone work for a particular campaign, it depends on the community. We have so far been very lucky and blessed in the communities that we've worked with, where there's a large cohort of volunteers who have stepped up. We always like to be able to build out a cohort of volunteers who are local to the community, because they can speak both the idioms of the community as well as their voices, their accents, their tone and tenor, and they sometimes even know the folks who they're calling, and that's a big deal, as you know. The training is based on script development that hits the messaging environment, and the confidence that's necessary is done through in-person role playing. We oftentimes have a volunteer who has some prior campaign experience or issue campaign experience. It might have been working for a Democrat or a Republican candidate. It might have been working for another national or regional organization, who then takes the lead, and we provide an additional layer of support to them and training on how to manage those volunteers. With the opportunity using a service, using Call Hub as a service, to do both synchronous call time and asynchronous call time, you need to have that back-end data integration. You need to have that technology platform be robust enough in order to manage, callers who they've got good hearts, but they don't have a lot of skill. So they need an easy-to-use technology solution to both do the outbound dial and to record the results of the conversation. And the volunteers who are coordinating these very distributed campaigns need to be able to manage folks, again, with a technology solution that allows for both synchronous and asynchronous call times. So, and we really found that Call Hub has got that capability that lets our campaigns, many of which are towns under 50,000 people, many of which are small volunteer corps of between 20 and 30 folks. Some of them are in it for the long haul. Some of them are in it for just a shift or two. Call Hub allows us to be able to integrate the data side and to bring the easy-to-use, intuitive to manage technology to these volunteers with a like a small amount of training on our part.
Mhm. That's so good to hear. Sounds like you guys are doing such a great job. Um, I just want to ask, have you looked at our analytics and leaderboard product?
So I don't think I have. Which one again?
So I think earlier this year or like late December, we launched our analytics. So our analytics dashboard. So if you look at it, you'll be able to take a look at the reach that you've got through your calling or texting, and the frequency at which you're reaching out to people, given a specified duration. And we also got like a leaderboard for the volunteers making calls, so they can look at how many calls they're making compared to another fellow volunteer. And for some of our we've seen that for other customers of ours, it's been like a great motivating factor to make more calls. So
You know what?
know.
Forgive me. I didn't realize that those were new features. They seem pretty seamless to me. So yes, we do use those as part of our training and part of our feedback to the volunteer corps in each of those towns that we're working with. I'm also, as I said earlier, we're planning to do some dial for support work this fall, and that will be again volunteer driven, but from our national pool of volunteers, folks who support every library. And we have every intention of using all of those positive feedback and real-time analytics to make this a successful campaign.
Oh, this is fantastic. No, I was talking about our leaderboard. I'm not sure if you've looked at it.
Maybe I haven't then. No.
Maybe, because yeah, absolutely, we do show all of the reports and everything, but this is kind of like a slightly more in-depth kind of interface.
Okay.
And you can compare agents across campaigns, not just the one that's running. And an agent, while they're running their campaign, they can also have access to their leaderboard, so they can see where they are in that week or in that month or in that day in terms of how many calls they made. Right now, or in the previous version of CallUp, an agent couldn't see how many calls they made, right? But this lets them compare, their progress with others, and we've seen it to be quite encouraging to sit for that extra half hour and make more calls.
That's not a tool that we're using right now. I'll have to take a deeper dive into it. Thanks for the tip.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Especially with your upcoming campaign, that might be really interesting to try out.
Right. I agree.
Okay. Great. So, so then, how do you right now use CallUp with Nation Builder, and what are some interesting ways you found that works out between the two?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again?
So you use CallUp with Nation Builder, right? So, are there any interesting ways in which you found to use the two, for example, with the tags or the surveys or RSVPs?
So I have to think about about that more technical question for a moment. The way that Nation Builder allows us to move people from through a, I can't remember the name of the term that they have for it, but that pathway that they have.
Oh yeah, the paths.
Yeah. And then to be able to do tagging and to be able to have to be able to have access to folks based on the date that the last interaction happened. Those are all key and very natural elements. So, hey, can I ask you to hold on for 1 second? I have to do one thing here with the kids again. I apologize. This is not a usual morning for me.
Perfectly.
Thank you. I'm terribly sorry about that. It's camp day for them. I don't know if you have kids or not, but normally my 8:30 in the morning Central Time is a breeze today, and you've been very kind to me. Thank you for letting me put you on hold like that.
No, it's really okay. I don't have kids, but I can imagine it can
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. So with Nation Builder and the pathways that they have, the tagging that they do, and the ability to look at it based on last instance and previous instances, the ability to do zoning and cutting turf as robustly as they have, and the ability to set through CallHub our own custom labels and tags and such, and to be able to train up folks based on the realities of that town. I think it's a really powerful thing, and for us to be able to really with a small amount of training, we're no experts in the technology ourselves. We're certainly not from either company. With a small amount of training, we're able to empower volunteers to do this kind of work. That's a real key element of it. Yeah, some campaigns we might not use all of the functionality that is available to us. Other campaigns, we certainly have a much more robust data set coming out of it, but the goal here in every case is to talk to as many neighbors as we can who meet the right criteria for that particular election. And these tools help us do that in a way that has been effective in the campaigns that we've worked on.
Nice. Have you used text messaging at any time to communicate with?
Yeah, we have not. We have been asking our supporters to opt in. We haven't quite hit critical mass yet when it comes to text messaging. And the nature of our work is not quite as crisis-oriented. And text messaging to us at this point looks like it would be something that would be very effective in very quick calls and quick call to action, quick response. I'm interested in exploring it also, though, for micro fundraising opportunities, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, yeah. So we just launched this product, I think, a couple of months ago, called our data collection or data sign up text-based thing. So possibly if you had an event, you could publicize this number, and then you could ask people to text to that number if they had any questions they want answered, or if they want to join in something. That's something that we did. But if you have trouble in getting people to share their phone numbers, then maybe this may not be the right channel for you.
Our primary data collection point so far has been email. And as I said before, we're looking to do more opt-in on that as we move forward. But we were not set up at the beginning that way, so we're playing some catch up on phone numbers.
Okay, cool. So what we were thinking was, if you have that number advertised, then you could ask them, do you support this initiative for this specific library? And then text this number if you agree. And then if they did, the next question you could ask them is, what's your email ID? And, any other question you wanted to ask them. So that's something we have running. Maybe you could test it out if you want it. All right, I have a few more questions.
Sounds like an elegant tool.
Yeah, I hope it does turn out to be that. So do you use anything besides Nation Builder to manage your volunteers nationally and local campaigns?
For every library's national presence, our backbone is 100% Nation Builder, and the integration tools that they have for CallHub and for Do-Gooder and a few other platforms, the ActBlue and PayPal for our donation chain. No, we don't use anything else. We're on that backbone because it's robust and it's more than adequate for what we need. Individual campaigns, like I said before, a lot of it depends on size and scale. We've found also sometimes that the We found that the folks who are in leadership on a campaign at an extremely local level sometimes have pen and ink levels of comfort, and we have to move them into Excel or Nation Builder. Sometimes we have folks who are shovel ready, as it were, to begin to use a tool like Nation Builder. Our hope across the campaigns that we're working with, though, is to be able to integrate some of those key supporter, donor, and voter contact tools from Nation Builder into each of those campaigns. Now, I'm not always successful at that, but it's our goal.
Okay, I have a couple of small questions for you, just to keep this fun. So, for example, if you had a fire that broke out in your library or your personal library, what are the 2 books that you would run in and get?
That's very interesting. I would get. I mean, the polite answer, the political answer is I wouldn't get any of them because I would just be able to get them all out of my local library again. But
Wow,
yeah, let me go with that because I don't think I've got anything that's in my library that is irreplaceable. You know.
That's a good answer. Now, what if it was your local library that was in trouble?
Well, there are a bunch of yearbooks and a bunch of local newspapers. I don't know if I could carry them all, but the local history here in my library that is about the fabric of the town that I was born in and I've raised my kids in. I'd want to be able to capture that extremely local stuff that is unique to my hometown library. Yeah.
Oh, that's really nice. That's lovely. Anyway, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions for us? Anything I could help you with?
Not in the context of today. I'd like to have a chat later about some of the things that you've brought up, where I'm in a better position to think that through, and also to bring my colleague Patrick Sweeney in. Patrick runs digital for us, and as executive director, we talked it through, and it was like, yeah, I should probably talk to you guys. But as he's a co-founder along with me, and he runs digital, so it'd be nice to be able to talk that through. One of the things that we're always interested in doing is to be potentially a beta site. And I don't know if you guys use your networks like that to have live tests, but we're in that kind of an entrepreneurial mode ourselves. So if there is a new technology that you guys are looking to deploy and to kick the tires on, we might be a good early partner for real life lab work on that.
Oh, that's fantastic. We do have a couple of products in the pipeline, maybe one in the end of August and the one at the end of December. Yeah, we definitely need people like you who work on the field and to give us the real advice and how to get this done correctly. Yeah, so thank you. That would be fantastic. I will get in touch with you then.
Yeah, if that's useful to you. Otherwise, it would be nice to set up a call with Patrick and be able to talk through some of these other tools. So.
Yeah, sure. Whenever he's available, get in touch with me and I'll get that set up.
Great. And then in terms of how you guys are going to disseminate this interview, please send me the links and we'll be sure to hype it out to the folks in our network as well.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully by next week have a draft and I'll share that with you. And then once we have your approval, we can put it up on our website. And you could also maybe share a picture of yours, or we're going to be using the Every Library logo on our site. And if all of that's okay with you, we'll have it up.
Okay. I'm sorry, did you say you need the logo?
No, I'm going to get that from your site, I think.
Sure. Yeah, in the footer of our website, there's a logo and use link there. Feel free to grab a higher res one off of there.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I'll do that. And could I use your picture? Because we're gonna, put it as you talking to.
Yeah, of course. I have to email that to you though. I don't think we don't have any. No, actually, there is a photo. Well, there might be 1 or 2 photos on the site, but let me send you something that's web ready.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. If so, good talking to you, John. We've learned so much about you and your PAC. It's been really great. Have a
I
great
truly
day.
appreciate the chance.
And
Thank
thank
you.
you for taking the time.
Okay, cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.